Peace, family, or Divine here. I go by Divine Intuition here on YouTube, and I just wanted to thank you again for tuning in. I did have a really good video set up for us and really good topics, and just wanted to check in and see how everyone's day has been so far. How did you spend your eclipse day? I've noticed that I was actually wanting to go outside and view it, but that didn't really flow the way it was supposed to. Actually, I felt within myself to do something opposite of. So, if any of you want to share your experiences about what you felt about the solar eclipse, feel free to do so. Just comment below. But I wanted to go ahead and introduce this video. So this video I am going to be talking about and getting into a deeper aspect of the firmament, the element of salt or sodium, floating, how that kind of correlates with all three, the micro and macro reflections of all of these things. And so, with that being said, I am going to go ahead and just give a brief introduction as to why I wanted to talk about these things. I do feel that it's been coming up for me, and I feel like I've been tapping in a little bit about the firmament, right? And I will say that I got a lot of clarity. And I know that this is a big topic for most because there is a ongoing, let's say an ongoing objection between each other of whether the earth is flat or whether the earth is spherical, right? And there's a lot of information that shows that there is a firmament over what we would call this plane of existence. Every culture has this depiction as well. So I started kind of tapping into it, and I always feel that this correlates back to very much so what would be considered the black hole or black sun consciousness. And I'll get into that in just a bit. However, when I started kind of digging deep a little more on the firmament, it got me questioning, kind of going down the rabbit hole in sorts, right? And I started realizing that the firmament actually, it's a protective barrier, glass like structure. But as I was looking into what this glass like structure would kind of resemble, I started kind of just doing some digging, right? And I was speaking to a friend about some stuff that I was tapping in on, and it had to do with salt. Now, in order for me to get through to finish the firmament process, we're going to kind of reflect on the salt aspect and why I reflected it back to the firmament, right? And so I was telling my friend, I was like, I don't know why I'm like getting this communication from my higher self, or maybe I'm just kind of like tapping into the collective consciousness, or, what would be like source consciousness. However, I started kind of realizing that there's a correlation to something that we didn't, something that kept popping up in my head. And one thing that kept popping up in my head was salt. And it's the number 11. And a lot of us, when we start to awaken to the numbers 1111, right? Now let's tap into that real quick. So before I start pulling things up, if anyone has watched the show Stranger Things, which I will tell you I'm very late on it. I just watched the whole thing, the 4 seasons this year. And I like to think that the reason why I don't jump on things when it's put out is because I'm not in that energy yet. You know what I'm saying? So I use things as reference points. And it just so happened that recently I've been in this reference point of 11 or of magnetism. Okay. And I know you're probably saying, well, 11's not magnetism. I'm not saying that 11 is magnetism, but what I am saying is the energy or the alchemic or the alchemy of being in magnetism, or just from, your toroidal field magnetism. That's the energy that I'm in. But I realized, and we're going to be getting into alchemy, which is kind of why I brought it up, but I realized that I've been in a more alchemical process of understanding salt. And so this is the fundamental reason why I actually wanted to make this whole video, period, was because I started tapping into 11. 11 is salt. Well, 11 is sodium, right? However, this brings me back to Stranger Things. And this is why I kind of saw this whole season or all 4 seasons this year. So, as you know, the main character is 11, and then you have like her, her friend who she dearly loves, Mike, right? Now, 11, they call her L, right? But her name is 11 because her experimental number, or her assigned number, was 11, subject 11. And that's what I would say, that she is a subject. Subjects are experimented on, right? And so that's exactly what they were doing. They were experimenting, observing, and then gaining more knowledge based off of her as an individual and the test results, right? So, 1 minute. Wow, that was pretty interesting. I actually paused the video because there were these 2 big military planes, and they just flew right over. But they were so strong that it shook the window. And I'm actually looking at like 2 doors down, and there was a lady on the second floor as well. She looked out because it was a strong shake. So interestingly enough, I caught a glimpse of it. I have to look up what exactly plane that was. It was definitely a military plane. To kind of circle back before I got slightly distracted. So 11, right? She and all of the children there all have their own abilities. However, 11 displayed 11 and one other person, but I don't want to give too much away, just in case for folks who haven't really watched the series. But 11 displayed very high potential, and she was used to view and tap into a certain aspect of herself that was able to connect to everyone. And one of the things that stood out to me throughout the whole season was that in order to activate that part of herself, she had to be in what was considered a sensory deprivation tank, right? And they put her in the sensory deprivation tank, and it's to cut off all stimulation so that she can actually focus and enhance her senses and her focus while she is looking for whoever she's looking for, right? And there's a certain part where they make these at home sensory deprivation tanks, but she requires a lot of salt. Now, here is the fact that brought me back to the firmament and floating and how I kind of put these things together. Because I feel like as long as we understand what symbolism is and we have somewhat of a rational mind and how we can understand what this symbolism is actually telling us and break it down, and we are decoders, then we could see this right in our face. And this is how we're being told what is what, right? So now speaking back on the salt, she needs salt. And the one thing that I noticed is that she requires salt, and when it's pounds and pounds of salt, salt enhances her ability, but it allows her to float. That is the one thing that I want to go ahead and share with everyone, is that salt allows her body to float. Okay? The minute that she's floating, because of the salt, and she doesn't, have to be all the way fully immersed like when she was at the lab. That was kind of more of a state of the art. So the at home one, she requires a lot of salt so that she can actually float. But needless to say, right? Let's go back to the firmament now, because I just correlated the salting and floating, right? But now I'm going to correlate the macro and micro reflections. So the firmament. Well, there are many aspects to look at this plane of existence. However, a lot of cultures and a lot of civilizations around the world from different time and eras, right? They all show a plane, and they show what you would kind of rectify as like a firmament, right? And a plane. Some show things underneath, like in Norse, they'll show the roots of the tree. The Masons, they show a black sun, which we'll talk about in just a few. And some will show waters or whatever, but this is what had me thinking about a lot of things. So, as I have all of these salt type of thoughts kind of piecing together, I started realizing that, okay, so what is the one thing that we have in common with the water? Not just that, well, with this plane of existence on top of breathing air and whatever, right? Well, that's just water. But I realized, and I was telling my friend, I said, I think salt is actually like deeper than we realize. And I started thinking about it. We sweat salt water. If salt wasn't so important, then why are there so many minerals in salt? And why is it that we need the iodine, the natural iodine from salt, right? Iodine comes from the sea. And it comes from salt water, which, in reality, iodine comes from like kelp and things of that nature, right? But needless to say, it's salt. You can have Himalayan salt, which is still, within the mountains. But that's a different story. But then you have sea salt or Celtic salt, right? And that comes from the sea. But either way, your body requires salt. And I realized they didn't show us in this show, in Stranger Things for no reason, that 11 was literally utilizing salt as a way to float on water, a way to master the water, or I would say to a way to master her electromagnetic field, right? Um, Jesus was the master who walked on water, so they say. I'll just say that I'm not a religious person here, but I will give respect to those who have that type of belief. Um, and so we're seeing a trend here, and we're seeing that 11, which remember, sodium is the 11th, is the atomic number. 11 is the atomic number of sodium. So the main element of sodium chloride is sodium, right? Um, and so, you know, with that being said, she floats on water. When she goes into the states of her trying to locate somebody, which I called it a mirror realm, she's walking on water. She's walking on water. So she's walking on water. She's floating on water her in her body, in her reality, in her mind. She's walking on water. This gives her the opportunity to find whoever it is that she is looking for. So then I realized, okay, well, if they're showing us that salt is so important for 11 and how she is connected, that would be mirroring, right? When she is walking on water, she is mirroring herself. You can literally see the water, and every time she walks, you see her reflection. So she's mirroring herself. Now, let me go ahead and show something that I thought was really interesting. Now, let me see if I can pull it up. Now, does everybody see that? Okay, so this is what I would consider the master who walks on water, or the master, or the being who masters, themselves to be able to walk on water. But nonetheless, this is a Masonic image, and I've always saw this. I actually have it, and then of course you have the Ouroboros. Now, this to me, which is really interesting, there's one card, and I want to say that again. If let me see if I can make it bigger. It actually says here macrocosm, microcosm, right? So this is the as above, so below concept. Now, this is where I want to go ahead and introduce the fact that salt is the concept of floating on water, right? So then we'd be here. What is underneath the water, or oceans, or seas, is salt water. But we sweat salt, so we are salty beings. Now, I don't want to say we're salty beings, but we do perspire salt. And I started realizing too, right? Do you guys take salt baths? I started realizing how refreshing a salt bath is. Epsom salt, which kind of would be a more manufactured type of sea salt, but they also have bath salts. And I have like a gray, like a French gray sea salt to just bathe. And it's actually really nice. But then I realized there's a heightened cleansing experience when you take a salt bath. And what it does is it actually removes all of the positive ions. So you're actually left with negative ions is what we need. We need the negative ions, not the positive. The positive is what comes from like electronics and the wind. Think of positive of fire and wind, right? And then think of negative as water and as earth. So there's something about the salt that's very cleansing. It's very energetically cleansing. I clarifying. That's the other word that I wanted to say. It's energetically clarifying. And then if you add it with other things like essential oils that are known to clarify and clear, then you become very sensitive. Okay. This is the reason why she needs a lot of salt. But I personally think that she requires so much salt because of the fact that she is highly sensitive. So it's going to boost up her abilities even like by I would say by 10 times 10. But anyways, so there's a card in the tarot deck and it's the magician card. And interestingly enough, the Ouroboros is actually around the waist of the magician. So I thought that that was pretty unique. Now let me go ahead and let me say what it is that I see here and how I feel it correlates to the firmament, right? So you have the waters above and the waters below. You have the crown, but then you have which we see now. Okay, here's a good example. This tower or crown, right? It looks like a tower here. There's a fish here, but he has the star. Let's call it a star. Well, interestingly enough, the firmament always kind of shows that there's Polaris that would be above the firmament shining down, or maybe possibly, yeah, it's actually above the firmament. So, anyways, what I was thinking was the one thing that we have in common with the water, right? And we're always comparing the fact that we are so and so percent of water, our body is water, the earth has such and such percent of water, which is synchronistic to our bodies, right? Okay, great. We have salt. These bodies of water are salt. When the water evaporates, in order for us to get sea salt, the water has to evaporate and then it has to be harvested from the actual place, like from the sand, from the ocean. That's how we get sea salt, man. So, interestingly enough, and I use sea salt, I use Norwegian sea salt. It has a lot of minerals. So, I figured this much. Let me go ahead and back out of this real quick because I want to show something else. So I started looking and I started tapping into, I think all of this actually started based off of me looking into the moon because I started kind of figuring out, okay, I started tapping into Black Moon Lilith a few weeks back. And then I started kind of looking at the aspects now. I feel like I'm very sensitive to feeling the transitions of the placements and where they are in my chart. And I noticed that there was a placement that moved because I felt my energy change, right? And it's like, what is that? What is that placement? And so I looked and I was like, oh, wow. Pardon. that placement literally got moved not too long ago, like just a few days ago, before I had realized that I felt different and I felt like hyper and all things that I didn't feel for the past couple of weeks, right? So I'm starting to realize that energies are definitely heightened. Or maybe it's just the fact that I'm feeling the energies easier or easily, more easily than I was able to before. So I do have more of a receptivity as far as energies, as far as feeling energies. So then I started kind of like looking into the moon. And family, don't get me started on the moon, okay? But I will say this. If many of you are not into astrology, and I'm just barely getting into astrology. I'm not really deep with it, but I'm getting there. I'm working up to it. There is a very interesting thing that I notice about the moon. The moon has the north node, south node, and these are not even planets, they're calculations, right? But I also noticed that the moon also has black moon Lilith, which is not a planet or a star, but it's a void close to the moon, or that has to do with the moon. Now, we have three different influences that all correlate to the moon on top of the moon itself, which is four correlations. So you have the moon energy, you have the north node, you have the south node that correlates to the moon, and then you have black moon Lilith that correlates to the moon. So I said, well, what the hell is going on? Why do we have so many influences based off the moon, but we only have one sun? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it don't make no sense to me. So that's what all of this kind of started going down the rabbit hole for me. So I said, okay, let me just look into this. I said, something ain't right. I was just looking at my birth chart, and I said, oh hell no. I noticed, like my placements got me a little messed up, because now I understand like what the challenge is, you know what I'm saying? So I have two different, I won't say much because I think it's a little personal, but I have opposite, there's two different opposite reflections or energies that literally contradict each other to be in the same house. So that's what I've noticed. And I was like, oh, hell no. Like, what the hell is going on? But, anyways, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show what I found, which made me start to think about that what I was tapping into is more of an alchemy understanding. And remember, I was saying that sodium is the 11th atomic number, right? So you see here, they rounded to 23, but it's 20. You see how it all differs? It's quite amazing. So it says 22.989. This one says 22.987. But I wanted to get into this. And 22.99 because they rounded up. So atomic number is 11. Okay. Here, I can zoom a little. So boom, this is what I saw when I was scrolling, and I said, oh my God, I know this. I said, I know this. Okay. I go from this alchemy symbol, and then I see this here. So I clicked on it and I said, oh my gosh, this goes back to the 3 primes. Family. We're going to get into this right now. But I just wanted to show you where I was going. All right, bam, we here. So that picture took me to this website. And I will kind of sum it up because I would love to read this, but this is going to take a little long. So I will sum it up, right? So basically, what they're talking about is the three primes, or um, the prima materia, three primes of alchemy are mercury, sulfur, and salt. Okay, notice the colors. We'll come back to that in a minute. So it's the idea that all forms of matter are embodied by these three elements of nature: sulfur, mercury, and salt. I guess there's someone by Paracelsus. He determined that everything correlated to mercury, or sulfur, mercury, and salt. And he demonstrated this through a theory by watching a piece of wood burning. The fire alluded to the work of sulfur, smoke. Sulfur, smoke, the work of mercury, and the residual ash was that of salt. So smoke is to mercury. That's really interesting. I'll only say this. I don't know if anyone has realized that Mount Etna yesterday was blowing smoke rings. Yeah. Um, and I actually looked up smoke, you know. I know what rings are. That's definitely a feminine concept. That's the womb, the egg, it's all feminine at the end of the day. But I was trying to relate what smoke was, and I just found it right now. And funny enough, I looked at this yesterday and didn't even put those two together. So we can go and we're going to skip some of this real quick, but let's go. So they have this is where they get the energies for the zodiac, right? Cardinal, fixed, mutable. So salt is fixed. Okay, we're gonna come back to this, but just look at how it says fixed. Okay, now another thing that I realized was when I'm looking at this looks like the firmament. This would be the plane of Earth. This would be the top dome, and as above, so below. So there has to be a bottom dome. That's personally what I think. And then we'll get into why I feel that way as well. So then we can go ahead and see more or less. But again, this looked to me, when I was looking at it, was that there was a firmament and this was a fixed placement, right? Earth is a fixed placement, like the firmament is fixed over the plane of existence. So let's go. All right. So in short, Mercury is the attribution of heaven, the spirit, and the mind. It represents the workings of light and the underlying forces of conception that give perception to space, time, and the occupancy of material substance. All right, so let me say this real quick about Mercury. Mercury is not part of the chakras. Every time, it's part of the chakras, but it's not part. I'm trying to explain this better. When you look at what they show as the chakra system, Mercury is always above the head, if you've noticed. Or it'll be like right there, on this, but it's never on top of the head. Well, on the head, it's always like above the head, to signify that Mercury is away from the rest of the body. All right. Or I would say from the internal aspect of these chakra points. So Mercury is not internal like the other chakra points. Needless to say, we're not gonna, and this is, see, and it talks about heaven. So when we always think about heaven, what do we always look up? I said it. What do we always do? We talk about heaven being up, right? Up. So in this aspect, just keep that in mind to how I'm going to kind of correlate all of this stuff. But it is the perception of space, time, and the occupancy of material substance. All right. So now we go to sulfur, and this is the recap. So, in other words, since creating and releasing bonds is the primary attribute of this tria prima, it holds the key role in the relative manner that consciousness applies itself to matter. And this is why it can likewise be defined as the soul of an organism or the essence of anything of organic substance for that matter. All right. So, spirit and mind are same. Okay. Soul. Soul is the consciousness that applies itself to matter. All right. So, soulish consciousness. And now we're going to get to salt. So, what do we have so far? We have mind, soul, and salt. Salt is, okay, so it says, alchemy has thus presented salt, the body as the container, the will, information, knowledge, and wisdom, where the higher intellectual energy of creation becomes written in an anatomical scribe of conscientiousness. All right, so main words to look on is container, the will, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Now, this is really good, and I wanted to bring this up. Now, I am going to just go ahead and specify to the family that this does not mean that this is exactly what it is. This is just my interpretation, kind of just like pieces to the puzzle that I've been putting together. But I implore everyone to go ahead and think for themselves. It would be great if we could build on this together. You know, I'm always inviting of building on things together because I feel that you will have a different perspective, and then that perspective will give me another piece of the puzzle, just like kind of bouncing light off of each other's mirrors, right? So that's how we interpret. That's definitely how I feel like we are building on things to that degree. So let me go back real quick because, well, let me express the fact that when you will speak to certain individuals, they will say that Earth School is the hardest school. It's the hardest school that we signed up for. Nonetheless, we signed up for it. But however, it was our will. What is the main thing that a lot of occultists speak by? Thy will be done. The Bible even says, my will be done. But occultists, and I'm only name dropping this person individually, or, you know, specifically for the reason of how he kind of fits into what we're speaking on here. And Aleister Crowley is the one, if I'm not mistaken, who adapted the term of thy will be done, you know, but this is also know thyself. So anyways, now the reason why I pointed out salt with all of those key words that they were describing as far as alchemy was because it all sounds very much so like earth, a place of knowledge, a place of wisdom, a place of information. but we're also dealing with hidden information, right? So we're in the information age. Isn't that interesting how this is kind of like coming up all together? We receive knowledge through information, but we receive wisdom by applying the knowledge. So this is a stepping stone of a container, if that makes sense. So here, let me just go back real quick. If you look at these are stepping stones, the container, right? But then the container understands the will. With the will, he can decipher or choose for himself what information he takes in and what information he accepts. With that information that he accepts, he applies it as knowledge. Okay? With the abundance of information, it becomes knowledge. And with knowledge, he applies it as wisdom. So I apologize. But this is the one thing, and it literally says where the higher intellectual energy of creation becomes written in an anatomical, which would be the body, right? Anatomical scribe of conscientiousness. This is about evolution. What is the one thing that we have done and what goes under the same principles is Earth. Earth has evolved. Earth has evolved from a primitive energy, right? Um, and I will be making a video very close to this one, but it's going to talk about the eyes, right? Certain eyes in the sky and the eyes that fell. Just stay tuned for that one, y'all. But this is very much so a contained space. Earth, there's nothing like Earth. This is the hardest energy, or this is the hardest school for many of us to go through. But we chose it for a reason. And if we chose it to be here, because we know that it's a contained space, there is no getting out. There's plenty of videos that show rockets trying to fly into space. We've never been in space, family. Let's get that out of the window, right? We've never been in space. The reason why NASA is actually even relevant, it's because it's controlling the narrative of space, right? It's in the same it NASA and the government go hand in hand. Need I say more, right? So we've never been to space. We cannot shoot out rockets from this firmament. They always top and then they always curve down because it hits the top and it can't go anywhere. So it has to pretty much either hits the top and ricochets and then it starts to go down because of the curvature of the dome of the firmament, or it hits the top and it kind of gets stuck there and it has to wait for all of the whatever is propelling it, like the fuel or whatever is propelling that rocket. Sorry, I don't have the correct terminology right now for that. But whatever the fuel is, whatever is powering that rocket, it has to actually finish before it can come down. Funny enough that we always only ever see just the rocket taking off, but the rockets never go anywhere, family. Okay? And there's even been a declassification that we never landed on the moon. There are also videos of Buzz. I forgot his last name, right? But he's the one who was the first man to ever land on the moon, step foot on the moon. He even says it that he's never landed on the moon. All of that stuff is a stage. They use water to make things look like they're, traveling space. But interestingly enough, they're really telling us what it is, right? So let's go back to the firmament now. Now we can go back to the firmament. So let me see if I can pull up this thing real quick. Let me see. So I'm done with this. Let's look up perfect black sun Masonic. Let's see if that's it. I don't know if that's it. Oh, 14 is a very occult number, but that's here. Ernie Banks is from Chicago for the Cubs. I'm trying to look for something. This right here, we're going to get into that. So, let's see if I zoom in. This eye in the sky is Polaris. This is the eye that is separate from our dollar bill. When you have the pyramid and it's separated, this is Polaris. It's always looking down. It is literally the eye in the sky, okay? Now, it's kind of showing you, and this is not the one that I wanted, but let me see if I can find it. Black Sun Masonic. I'm trying to figure it out. Where is it at? Where is it at? I think we are close. Huh. Okay, family. I want to watch it, but I want it to take us straight there. So we're going to see real quick. Hold on. I hate that. All right. This is probably not what I'm looking for. So interestingly enough, they talk about, okay, this is, hold on, family. I don't know anything about TikTok. This is literally my...
the video, he shows a CD or a disc. He immediately draws the geometric shape of an oblate spheroid. We can see how he separates the oblate spheroid with a disc that has a hole in the center.
Okay. Y'all see this, right?
Then, below, he draws a circle, immediately paints it completely black.
You seen how he put the firmament around.
From this black circle, rays come out and 3 rays pass through the hole in the center. Below he writes, still.
It
One
does
of the
not move.
possible meanings of this black circle may be the black sun.
It is the black sun. The black sun is not moving. It's
He draws reliefs on the edge of the hole and writes North Pole. And above this hole,
stationary.
inside what would be the celestial vault, he draws a star, the polar star or Polaris. He marks 2 points and connects them in a circle and writes equator.
Hmm.
He draws 2 lines that go down from the polar star to the 2 points. The lines form a triangle.
They all are.
He highlights 2 of the rays coming out of the black sun and also forms a triangle, but vice versa.
There you are.
And he writes, as above so below.
Okay.
It's one of the 7 principles of Hermes Trismegistus. It appears on the emerald tablet and then in the Kabbalion. He erases the intersections and draws the sun and moon. And he makes a gesture of rotation. He draws 2 arrows to show the distance of the moon and the sun. Both are 3,300 miles or 5,310 kilometers away.
333. Oh, 3,300 miles. Sorry. 33 degrees. There we go. 33.
Then he measures the diameter of the sun and moon, being the same with a diameter of 32 miles or 51 kilometers. He draws continents on the surface and on the other side as well.
You see that, family?
He points to both sides and writes, saying, below he writes Summerland.
Summer land.
He draws rays coming out of the black sun and writes
Northern
Northern
lights. The
Lights.
aurora. Now,
This-
all right. I'm just going to pause there because I don't want to get too into the whole thing. And I apologize. I didn't realize that it looks so small. I was supposed to minimize myself. Here, let's just do it one more time. Let me see if I can. Oh gosh, I don't even know how to work this. Let me see if I can do it again. Family, this is really what the North Pole looks like. And real quick, did you see that it looks like an eye? Now, family, literally, what have I been talking about? If you've been catching up with me, if you've been on my channel, I have been on a black hole or eye type of energy. Do I personally feel that the type of energy that I've realized what it is the North Pole that looks like an eye? They won't even show you that, but you know what does show you? The globes. I've realized more than anything that if so a lot of globes actually always had a point in the North Pole, right? North Pole, South Pole, and then you can rotate it. But a lot of globes ended up only having a pole at the south, and they allowed us to freely, work the globe around with the North Pole not showing anything. Now, a real globe is going to distinctly have a North Pole that actually has a pole in it, and then the South Pole having a pole that comes out of it, in and out, right? Now, family, y'all just seen that that looks like an eye, okay? The black hole energy that started this whole rabbit hole. And maybe this is what they mean by like in the rabbit hole, you know what I'm saying? Or down the rabbit hole. But Summerland, when I heard that the flip reverse is literally called Summerland, I thought of, well, is this the reason why some of the oldest civilizations here and the most acute knowledge wise were the Sumerians, the Sumerlands, right? Sumerians, Summerlands. Um, I mean, they call that Shambhala, they call that other things, right? But this is not the same one. But since I'm on it, we might as well. Or not. Let's just see if it picks up.
Of the video,
Oh,
he shows a
well, I
CD
guess
or
that
a
one was
disc.
on.
He immediately draws the geometric shape of an oblate spheroid. We can see
Okay, now real quick. This is what I wanted to show, right? So he's literally describing the picture that I wanted to find, but it's perfect because he is showing more in depth. Now, first thing that he draws is a circle, but because as within, so without, the circle or the plane is in a shape of a disc. That's two-dimensional, family. Okay? Let me go ahead and let me specify. Do you know what is the biggest thing as to why we say that we're three-dimensional? But you know what the correlation of a three-dimensional perspective is? It's the fact that a two-dimensional, you know, geometric shape like a circle, if it was three-dimensional, it would become a sphere, right? If anyone has ever watched the movie Interstellar, Interstellar literally shows that a two-dimensional geometric shape is a circle only because we see it flat. But if it were to be a three-dimensional figure, it would be a sphere. This is the reason why a lot of us think that we are living on a sphere. But how can we live on a sphere with just three dimensions, which is like a triangle or a triplicity, right, of consciousness, when a lot of us are still battling a duality, right, within ourselves? So some of us are living in 3D, 5D because we've already transcended the battle of duality. And this is the reason why a lot of us, it's very hard to even rationalize these concepts because I also feel it's where you are, you know? Um, like I was saying, I was just pondering on this firmament, and this is where it got me to all the way to here. But it's not to negate the fact that the reason why people say, "Oh, it's a fear. Oh, it's a fear." But how is it a sphere? But you're living in a two-dimensional reality. You know, like your only reality is sun and moon, and sometimes it's not even the fucking moon; it's the sun. Like it blows my mind. um, but I started telling my friend, one of the things that I started telling him, I was like, well, the thing that got me here too, fam, was the new show Three Body Problem. And I said, oh shit. I said, that looks like, first thing that I started, what I would say is realizations, right? Or some of us would call them downloads. And I said, okay, wait a minute. I said, we are living in a we do have three bodies. Now, whether the moon is really a body or not, it's illusory or illusory to what is or isn't a body. Okay, we don't know that shit. I personally think that it's a reflection, but hey, you know, I personally think that the reason why the moon is considered reflective is because it is a reflection. It is a reflection of the sun and the black sun, and or Polaris, right? Let's say it like that. Now the guy draws Polaris within the firmament, but that's not accurate because Polaris never moves. Okay. Polaris never moves. Polaris is the one fixed star, which is the North Star. So anytime you get lost, they always say find the star, find the North Star, and go straight to it because you know that you're going north, right? Um, it doesn't move. So if it doesn't move and the firmament actually moves around, man, there's a really good, I'm going to pull it up too, but the firmament moves around. And basically, what I'm trying to say is we're in an egg. We are in an egg, and an egg is a world. And the being who created this world is controlling this matrix. But it's also gathering on understanding the perceptions, right? Um, Now, if we are all of this source consciousness, then the source is learning itself through every experience, which is why it wanted to create a world so that it can learn of itself. Um, so let me go back to the firmament real quick. First thing he does is he draws a circle. He's showing that the firmament is like a disc, but it would be so he's showing the disc, which is considered the Earth plane or the uh, the Earth dimensional plane or plane of existence. This is what it's called. It's called a plane of existence. So he shows that it's a disc. Now, interestingly enough, there was some um, there was something that I was getting into. It's been a little bit, so I do need to, I do need a refresher on it. However, when I was tapping into this research, very, very occult research, I started, what I tapped into was that Toth stole original information that was considered to be the original teachings of Source. And they were considered to be like CDs. He took that information, hijacked that information, and then created the Emerald tablets. Interestingly enough, I feel that these Emerald tablets have something to do with there is an supposedly now I might be trailing off here, so let me just reel it back in. But just to finish what I was saying, because I don't want to just channel surf. Um, it might be consistent to the emerald that the entity, if you call it Lucifer, the entity of Lucifer before leaving or being casted out of heaven, is a better way of saying it, and before being casted out to heaven, being casted and then coming down to a closed network system, right? Apparently there was an emerald that fell from his crown. Now, I'm not sure how relevant that is, but it would make a lot of sense because this is about illumination. And emerald has to do with our heart chakra. The color of emerald is green. Green is our heart chakra, right? And so the aurora, and he's going to show it again, but the black sun, when it emanates out from the center, which would be considered the North Pole, because the North Pole is the only place that the aurora actually comes from, right? The aurora is green, which ties back into the heart chakra. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to play this so that we can kind of see it again from a larger frame because I did an itty bitty frame. And I think I might have to do it again because I'm pretty sure my internet or my computer is slow. I think I have a lot of things open.
Of the video, he shows a
Winning
CD or a disc. He immediately draws the geometric shape of an oblate spheroid. We can see how he separates the oblate spheroid with a disc that has a hole in the center.
He's showing you the CD for a reason,
Then,
family.
below, he draws a circle, immediately paints it completely black.
And this is going to be tied into the eye that fell,
From this
okay?
black circle, rays come out and 3 rays pass through the hole in the center.
It literally
Below,
looks
he
like an
writes,
eye at the
still,
bottom. Look at this. Y'all see it, right?
what of the possible.
Y'all see this? This looks like an eye that fell. Y'all ain't ready. Oh, I think it's my computer. If I do it again, it's gonna start from the beginning. I can't talk. That's what it means. It's telling me, like, shut up. If they want to watch it, you gotta watch it and not pause it. All right, we're gonna do it one last time, fam. I just wanted to show that. That's what it really looks like, okay? This is what I was talking about. Okay,
Of the video,
let's
he
try it
shows a
again.
CD or a
Last
disc.
time, I swear.
He immediately draws the geometric shape of an oblate spheroid. We can see how he separates the oblate spheroid with a disc that has a hole in the center. Then, below, he draws a circle, immediately paints it completely black.
Mm. Yeah, I
From this
caught
black
that.
circle, rays come out and 3 rays pass through the hole in the center. Below, he writes, still,
Still is stationary.
what of the possible meanings of this black circle may be the black sun. He draws reliefs on the edge of the hole and writes North Pole. And above this hole, inside what would be the celestial vault, he draws a star, the polar star or Polaris. He marks 2 points and connects them in a circle and writes equator. He draws 2 lines that go down from the polar star to the 2 points. The lines form a triangle. He highlights 2 of the rays coming out of the black sun and also forms a triangle, but vice versa.
Hmm. That's the image that I showed you earlier.
And he writes, as above so below.
That's the
It's one
image
of the
that I
7
showed you
principles
earlier.
of Hermes Trismegistus. It appears on the Emerald Tablet and then in the Kabbalion. He erases the intersections and draws the sun and moon. And he makes a gesture of
This
rotation.
is showing that they're
He draws 2 arrows to show the distance of the moon and the sun. Both are 3,300 miles or 5,310 kilometers away. Then he measures the diameter of the sun and moon, being the same with a diameter of 32 miles or 51 kilometers. He draws continents on the surface and on the other side as well. He points both sides and writes, saying, below he writes Summerland. He draws rays coming out of the black sun and writes Northern Lights. The center of the drawing is equal to the Mason symbol, which is a square and a compass.
Sol negro, black sun.
He points out the ray coming out of the black sun toward the moon, and then he erases the face of the moon.
What I say, fam.
He makes signs explaining that the sun doesn't light up the moon. Who does it is the black sun.
This is actually the first time I saw this because I don't go on TikTok ever. This is like my first time ever. That's a sunny dial. Right. I'm glad that it stopped. So let's exit back out of that because now that we saw that, I saw everything I needed to see. Now this takes me back again to the fact that I said, could salt be the firmament, right? And I'm going to explain why. Now, there's just one more website, and I swear I'm done. But I wanted to cover all bases. We're gonna have to get into the bus system, okay? Because I'm telling y'all, I've been I've been definitely tapping into quite a lot of different things, but I realized that it's just the energy that I've been in. It's been a lot of like reflecting on different things and questioning everything, which is always the best thing. Here, let's I will be editing this to just kind of make it a little easier on myself. No, this is, what is it? That's the bus system. That's that. Um, okay, I think it was this one. So let me see if I go back. If this was it. Let's look up sodium real quick. That's what it was. All right, family. I got y'all. So I'm going to just read it real quick because what I really want to go to is, well, so y'all don't, so y'all don't think I'm lying. We're just making things up out of nowhere. Let me see. Is this one it? This one's it. Okay. Sodium. Okay. So I was actually looking up sodium, la la la. And I'm like, ooh, okay, let's get back into this 11 energy, right? A reflection. Remember, we're speaking on reflections, microcosm, macrocosm, macrocosm, microcosm, reflections. So everything that we're really studying when we study anything is within ourselves that reflects our external. Our external reflects back to us. These are the ways that we can go ahead and piece these things together. So again, I'm looking up sodium because I realized, all of the points that I made about sodium and why it's so important, or salt, why it's so important. So I came down here. I kind of briefly went through this. It's soft. Well, it's silvery white, besides it being soft. But then again, Sodium chloride makes a difference, okay? Because then that's salt, and so it hardens. Um, Sodium is an alkali metal. And they're always trying to tell us that we need to stay alkaline, right? Um, Anyways, moving forward. So I came down here and I read sodium is the sixth most abundant element in the Earth's crust and exists in numerous minerals such as feldspars, sodalite, and halite. I have a sodalite crystal. They're talking about crystals here, fam. Okay. So I was like, oh, wait, I didn't know this about sodium, sodalite. I was actually, and sodalite, interestingly enough, sodalite is for the throat chakra. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But I was like, okay, I know what feldspars are, but what's halite? So I moved to halite. And let's go ahead and take a look what halite says. All right, so I'm like, okay. So halite is commonly known as rock salt, is a type of salt that natural form of sodium chloride. Halite forms isometric crystals. All right, fam. This mineral is typically colorless or white, colorless, okay, but may also be light blue, dark blue, purple, pink, red, orange, yellow, or gray. Now, I'm not going to click on it because I want to show you guys something else from here. Was that it? Oh, I guess that was it. Now, I thought there was something else that I was reading. But anyways, when I read that, I said, damn, that's crazy. You know what this sounds like? This sounds like all of the colors that the sky makes. Just think about it, family, right? How can one sun that is projecting like a red light, right, stop, but like an orange red light? Clearly, the black light or the black sun is emanating either blue or green, okay? But green is closer to blue than it is to red. That's all I'm saying. We see an orange sun out there, or what we call it orange or yellow, but yellow, well, let's say orangey red, right? Orange is closer to red than it is to green or black. Now, another thing that I was thinking about was blue and purple are closest to the black color. This also correlates with the fact that black would be invisible, or how can I say this? Black would be, or the black sun is invisible, right? It's not visible to us. So then we're also speaking on a feminine energy that tends to not be as talked about or seen, right? Now, I'm not saying, and black is associated to a feminine energy, so I could put that out there. However, we're speaking on, if you look at the spectrum of light, red is closer to what we would consider the white, and then purple is closely considered to UV. you have infrared and then UV rays, right? Now, we'll go ahead and just dabble in for a minute. Let's just talk about basic colors. Because yes, we can say, oh, the sun projects UV rays and all this stuff, but I don't want to touch on that base. I just want to touch on the colors. Okay? Something very simple that we can all process is the colors. We already saw that we have let's talk about it. We already saw that the black sun projects colors of green because the northern lights are green, but it also projects colors of purple, even sometimes blue. That's on a higher spectrum family, right? But then we also get colors like red sunsets, yellow, orange, even gray. And these are all of the colors that are associated here that could literally be from these two dual suns. Now, in another video, and I am going to leave this here, I spoke on Pluto and how there was one video that I found that suggested that Pluto was all the way at the bottom, but I said this for a reason because at the time I was tapping into a frequency that I was feeling about this under illuminated body, or planet is what we call it, right? But it's really a body. And I said that it felt like it could have been a Lucifer energy. Interestingly enough, that this black sun energy is at the bottom. So again, we're speaking on a whole encapsulated type of firmament. And it's not just the top, but it's at the bottom. It's just what we don't see. And like I said, so when I started looking at all of these colors that it can go to, right? But it may also be all of these colors. I started thinking, well, what if it's white, right? Or colorless, but what if the halite, which could possibly be the dome, what if with that colorless, because of the colors that these suns are portraying or projecting, these are all of the colors of the sky, literally. And I've actually seen the sun as a red sun before. It's really not orange or yellow like we think it is. It's actually red, and I have pictures to prove it. Now I do have one other thing before I go because I just wanted this to marinate real quick. But again, I was doing a lot of research and I came on to somebody who showed this really well. So I'm gonna pull it up from my phone real quick. But he shows that my bad, my phone is taking a little bit, so I apologize. But that we're living in an egg. This world is an egg. It's a cosmic egg. So here, I'm going to show it off my phone real quick. Hopefully the family can see it. Let me just get out of here so that y'all can see what I'm talking about real quick. Okay. So.
Okay, the sky that runs across. Okay, so it's almost like a dome. Okay, so we're sealed off from these realms above. And I'll explain all that in a second, right? So when we're looking at it from underneath, when we're sat on the earth, we're seeing all the constellations revolving above us.
Do you see the?
So pretty straightforward, really.
Did you see that? Look at that.
Okay, so this firmament on its axis, right, is revolving. Okay, it's motion, everything's moving above us, but the terra firma we're standing on is obviously not moving. Okay, so this axis is revolving. It's turning the firmament with all the stars and the constellations and everything else In turn, it's also affecting the motions of these toroidal fields that are spinning around us, like we discussed earlier on. Those toroidal fields are also carrying the suns and moons around, which is causing our days and nights and seasons and times, okay? And that in turn, that motion is also creating our weather, our winds, our currents, flows, airstreams, everything else. So it's one big system working together. It's a network starting from the cosmic vortex.
Bam, family. The vortex. You know what's so crazy is that when I started this, okay, the one thing that got me in motion to actually start posting so many things, but just in the aspect of the stuff that I'm just piecing together, right, was the fact that, and I've told this, but I will reiterate it again, is the fact that I ended up having a, hold on real quick. All right, my bad. I just had to check if my mic was on. But I ended up having a regression. And it was after the regression when I sat with myself. I still, stayed in that space of reflection, but inner reflection. And it was so interesting that I ended up seeing like an eye, and the eye was observing a world, right? And the world literally just went right past, but it was so small. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, that eye looks like a black hole. So all of this actually started based off of an inner vision that I had. But again, anytime that we are processing and researching things in our external world, mind you, it is just a reflection of our internal. However, what I'm doing is processing what I felt first internally and what I saw and observed internally. And now I'm researching it and putting those pieces together on how they fit externally, because it's an as within, so without type of principle, right? It's a universal law. So this is how the black hole is an eye. Now he's saying that it's a vortex. And it's just very interesting, you know what I'm saying? Like how all of this really encompasses. But yes, we are living in a cosmic egg, family. And that means that it's enclosed, right? And so I think the number one thing would be is how do we crack the egg? And that's what all of these space rockets and rockets keep trying to do, is they keep trying to crack the egg without doing the work. Let that marinate. Anyways, this is Aurora Divine. If you liked what you saw and heard and you relate, please comment below. Share your thoughts. How did you like this video? What did you think about it? What were some takeaways that you can take from this video? I also do, let me put it up real quick. I also do energy reading paintings, and sidebarring on videos is just one of the many passions that I have, and I love research, but my main talent and craft is energy reading paintings. And I will also link that at the end of this video for anyone who is interested in maybe purchasing a reading. I always explain and reiterate that the painting itself and the energies are timeless. So anytime you look back at that energy reading, you will know that that is your energy. Your energy is always evolving, right? It's always moving, it's always in motion, which is the one thing that when I do this energy reading, it would be for that moment in time. However, that doesn't mean that the energies that come through in the painting are not relevant to you, because they are. We do work on ourselves, we are always evolving. So if there is something that correlates then that you feel doesn't correlate now, it may not correlate anymore because we are always evolving, but it's a beautiful snapshot as to what you can go back and see. And it's also something that I would consider that's part of your what I consider personal codes or personal energy signatures. And so, with that being said, you can always go back and look at it, and it's forever yours. So, if you are interested, go ahead and email me at auroradivine444@gmail.com. Again, family, if you liked what you saw, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that like button and before you walk out, and stay tuned for more. I will be coming back with another topic, which is very similar, and it's going to correlate to this video here. And feel free to check out some of my videos at the end of this video itself. All right, family, I'll go ahead and leave that here. Take care. Peace, everyone, and have a great night. Love y'all.